I would like to tell you a story. So you may have noticed I cover a bit of Xenoblade Chronicles on the channel, and if you had asked me when I first made the channel what game I'd probably be best known for, I would never have guessed it was the game about a boy and his blade just trying to reach Elysium. But after all of these videos about a series that has in the last couple of years elevated to my favorite game franchise of all time, sometimes I find it important to look back on the road traveled, to see all those muddy footprints left in the cobblestone road that have culminated and led to this moment in time, where the starting line seems so far back than you remember it being. So here's my own little Xenoblade Chronicle. It all started somewhere around 2015 or early 2016. I was really getting my Wii U and wanted a new game to play with. Or at least I think. I never clocked it for that important a memory back then, so I have some difficulty remembering it. But I remember thinking the cover of this new game I got was one of the coolest things I had ever seen. It was this little game known as Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, no one I knew played Xenoblade, let alone owned a Wii U, so it was kind of this whole experience just for myself. So I go in, make my character. I was always god-awful at character creation, and it ended up thinking the guy I made looked hideous after a few hours, but I joined the world, meet up with Elma, and think the combat was clunky as all hell. Long intervals of just doing nothing, right? But I keep pushing, and eventually this little ravine that I'm in gives way to this giant landscape view of the opening zone of Primordia. And I thought it was simply one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a game. For a little bit of context, the only open worlds I'd ever really played up to that point were just RuneScape, World of Warcraft, and Skyrim, and maybe the occasional Zelda game, but God, there was just something about Primordia that sparked something in my imagination. The one biggest takeaway I had from that game, besides the giant robots, which were cool as all hell at the time to me, and still are, was the giant, stony, sharp fingers of land that breached over the zone of Primordia. For some reason, I thought it was the coolest design I'd ever seen since a Halo ring, and God, that imagery just drew me in. You combine that with the music overall in Xenoblade X, and I was hooked. Then you tackle on Noctilum with its vast vegetation and giant cliffs, with Oblivion's massive ravine and giant Stargate. The game simply engrossed me. But the funny thing is I would never end up finishing the game. Call it whatever you want, but I just gravitated towards other games at the time, but that vista of Primordia, it would never leave my mind. Cut forward to the end of 2017, and for Christmas I pick up a copy of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I couldn't tell you why. Not even sure if I recognized the name as from the same series as X, but I just wanted something to play on my Switch. So I started playing it, thinking the back cover was cool and all. Onwards to Elysium and all that. And I read the back of the box, which I have over here. Let me just grab it. Alvest, a world in which massive creatures called Titans drift through a boundless sea of clouds. In such a world, people have made their homes on the backs of these Titans. Join Rex, a young man who has become the driver of Pyra, a mysterious life form in his blade, as they embark on a quest to find the mythical paradise of Elysium. Something about that just made me want to go on an adventure. I thought, oh, this looks colorful. Seemed inviting, so I popped the disc in, or the cartridge for the Switch, wait for it to download and install, and I boot up the game. So I watched the intro cinematic and remember how it was the mountains in Primordia that gripped me. Funnily enough, I had a similar moment here. The Cloud Sea. For some reason, I thought Sky Continents were the coolest biome ever. I still kind of do. Maybe it started with me playing a bit of Skyward Sword years and years ago. But whatever it was, the fact that Xenoblade 2 was essentially entirely on Sky Continents, above a sea of clouds, it just enchanted me. I thought Rex was a bit of a dork, but likable enough. And he rode around on a giant dragon monster thing. Reminded me of the boat from Wind Waker. And looking back on it, I think this was one of the moments that solidified adventure games as one of my favorite genres. Just wanted to see what this world of Allrest had in store for me, Awakening Pyra in that fight against Jen and Malice on the boat at the very beginning. I knew from that moment, oh yeah, I'm gonna like this, aren't I? Thought the voice acting was a bit awkward at times, or at least the direction was, but I didn't care. I simply didn't care. I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but in retrospect, I've come to identify this as a trait I tend to have with a select few games, where once it grabs me, I can put up with a lot, because that thing that grabbed me really grabbed me. And this was the case with Xenoblade 2. It's just that sense of adventure, that lighthearted sense of adventure. And the thing that sealed the deal was arriving at Gormott for the first time. It was another one of those, what I call Primordia moments, after the zone from Xenoblade X. Seeing the giant Titan's head towering over the open fields and hills and giant tree roots of Gormott, juxtaposed with the Cloud Sea, that was the moment I knew that no matter how long it would take, I was going to beat this game. And so I went full gamer mode, and I beat the game in a couple of weeks. Easy for me, I'd rarely have ever done that before for a non-MMO game. Normally I rarely ever finished games, but 2 was different. It was fundamentally different. It was a different beast from the games I'd played before now. Now, something you gotta bear in mind is that, at the time, my taste in games was changing on a fundamental but also rapid level. I grew up as an MMO and FPS kid. I played RuneScape, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, and Halo. Those were my games at various points in my life. Loved them all, and I soaked them up like a sponge. But it started with Wind Waker. I beat that game. Then I played Twilight Princess, and I fell in love with Zelda. All on my Wii U, mind you. I played Skyward Sword a little bit before this on the Wii, but I never, beat it. Hence that old saying I said earlier where I had trouble beating games. I'd always just reach the halfway point and for whatever reason just want to start over again. I love that sense of the beginning of a journey, But because of those Zelda games, I started to dip my toes into more RPGs, and JRPGs specifically. Xenoblade 2 was one of my first forays into the genre proper, and the game had its claws in me deep. And I played the game, and I played it some more, and fell more and more in love with it. A game's narrative have never really enraptured me like Xenoblade 2's did. And I don't even think I realized it at the time. I just thought it was a really good game, I just couldn't tell you why. And this was the time in my life I started to realize how much I loved video game storytelling. Maybe not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, definitely. Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy 15, Persona 5, the base game, Xenoblade 2. Those were the big 5 games for me at the time, for my transition into JRPGs. The games that really transitioned me into the JRPG player whose videos you are watching right now. And then we come to the ending of 2. And I was concerned. I thought Pyra and Myth were sacrificing themselves at the very end, after all that had happened in the game, and what the game had put me through was the dumbest and most contrived thing ever. And my entire impression of the game was about to sour. I could feel it coming on. And then the credits rolled, and I'm just like, dang, how are you gonna drop the ball like this? I was left dumbfounded, didn't know how to feel, and then One Last You plays. And I talk a lot about recontextualization a lot on the channel, because to me it's one of the most important feelings or emotions the game can elicit, or not emotion, but one of the biggest things that a game can elicit to make the overall experience better. God, One Last You is such a good song. And then when I say I proceeded to watch what would probably turn out to be my favorite ending of any video game ever, I mean, it's in very short company. It would become one of those core gaming memories for me that I would never forget. And then Torna comes out, and it blows me away again. And the entire time, I'm waiting for the moment they kill off Laura, because it has to happen, right? And then they just don't show it. And A Moment of Eternity starts playing, and I see Jin's transformation to one of my favorite characters finalized and crystallized. Cut to Rex fighting Pyra, cut to black. And just like that, Xenoblade 2 solidified itself as one of my favorite games of all time. Top 5 easily. And then years would pass. I started the channel, playing Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, as I was still clinging on to those games at the time, transitioned more to Final Fantasy 14 and then Genshin Impact for a bit. And then Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was announced, and honestly, it could have been announced a little bit before the channel. Kind of got the timeline there a little bit messed up. But I was excited to see the origins for a game I loved so much. I tried to find a copy of Xenoblade 1 before this, but I couldn't find a copy for the Wii game. Also, playing a JRPG on the Wii wasn't exactly the most enticing thing ever for me. And I had a 3DS, but I couldn't find the pack to make it strong enough to actually run Xenoblade 3D. So all I was left with was hearing Shulk's quote at the end of Xenoblade 2. Because I wanted to save the game. I didn't want to be spoiled on it. I wanted to save it for when I would eventually be able to play it. And it eventually comes out, and I played for a bit. Do a first impressions or 2 of it on the channel, and decided to play most of it off camera. I got to map in the forest or thereabouts, and I enjoyed it. But I moved on to cover other games on the channel, as the channel started to take priority for me. About a year and a half or so goes by, and I'm reacting to a Nintendo Direct, right, on the channel, and I think I predicted we'd maybe see Xenoblade 3 or something. I was kind of on copium at the time for that. Maybe I heard a rumor. It's been a bit, so I've kind of forgotten the finer details, but then they say one last trailer, and Xenoblade 3 starts to play, and I realize that it's Xenoblade the moment I see Mio with the dual rings, just like Nia. And that fire that had lit in me back in the day when I first played Xenoblade 2 all those years ago, sparked and raged again, and I made a new goal for the channel. Bring back Xenoblade 1, stream the rest of the game on my channel, then I'll play Xenoblade 2 and Torna, maybe largely off camera because I've already played them. And I do all this in preparation for a big push for Xenoblade 3 on the channel. I buckle up, play Xenoblade 1, and I love the game. Didn't blow me away like 2 did, but that was largely because the pacing got broke up for me because I was so determined for some reason to do every single side quest I could scavenge. And I mean every single one. I would do multiple passes on NPCs, just talking to them, hoping a side quest would spawn, because sometimes that actually worked. I maxed out Colony 6, not the Affinity, and I maxed out Affinity for the other colonies. I beat the game and thought that was really dang good. I go back to 2. Dang, that game did not miss a beat. I loved it as much as when I first played it, and when I watched people reacting to the ending all those years ago. Hell, I liked it even more. And the more I thought about Xenoblade 1's story, the more I grew to appreciate that one as well. I actually ended up doing a few streams for 2's ending and post-game, where I unlocked Elma, and then 3 came out. And I started playing it, and it kind of became my channel for a bit. I think I would stream that game almost every day, or at least whenever I could. World was different from the other games they had made, but it was so fun to explore. Seeing the Mechonis hand just jut out of the desert sands. Oh, so good. Araya on the distance with the Mechonis sword, and those things getting larger as you get closer and closer to them. Oh, it's so good. I even started making review videos for it, and I was still playing through the game, right? But I just wanted a chance to talk about it. Talk about the various features and what I liked about it. And then those videos did pretty well. And the game being incredible on top of people seemingly wanting to watch my content for it, just created this snowball effect for me. And then we got to Chapter 5. And I had heard about Chapter 5 being this incredible point in the game. So I prepared for a long stream for it. And that stream pops off and was so much fun. And the game just blows me away. Oh, that is still one of my favorite sections in any game ever. Keep going, and we eventually beat the game, and I make some review videos on the game as a whole. As I thought and played the series even more and made more videos on it, I took a step back and just realized, hey, I might have a new favorite series of all time here. And it's funny because I only kind of realized it in retrospect just how much the series had grown on me in so short a time. And I think the thing that really solidified it for me was that there was no misses for me. I loved every game, every entry in the series. I never finished Xenoblade X, I'm working on that on stream now, but come on, those are some of the earliest and fondest memories of JRPGs for me. Xenoblade 2 was a top 5 game of all time for me. It would eventually go on to become my number 2 game of all time. I love Xenoblade 1 the more I play of it again and the more I think about it. Xenoblade 3 is just freaking incredible. There was no misses. Do you know how hard it is for a series to have 4 mainline releases that are all roughly around 100 hours in length or more, and for them not to miss for you? You know how hard that is? But that was me with Xenoblade. I couldn't say the same for Halo. I didn't like Halo 5. Halo 4 had its issues. I couldn't say that for World of Warcraft. I didn't like the later expansions. There were some Final Fantasy entries that were just kind of a miss for me. But Xenoblade was separate from the rest. I loved every game of it. And when the dust settled, it had just become my favorite series of all time. And now we are remaining in the worst period of all time, which is waiting for the next one. Or at least waiting for the DLC for 3 to come out. But you know what? Take all the time you need. They haven't missed for me yet. I'll be here for the story to continue, for my own Xenoblade Chronicle to continue onward, to just walk on. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And click the bell icon to be notified for when I upload in the future. And what I want you to do, dear viewer, what I want you to do is leave a comment down below with your own story, your own history of Xenoblade Chronicles. How did you first get into the series? Is there any parts you don't like? Any parts you absolutely love? I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your perspective, because one of the most beautiful things about analyzing games is just how varied and different people's opinions and experiences can be for them. We don't have to agree, but I would love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. So stay safe out there, everybody. Have a great day. Go play some games, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.